Okay guys, we're going to try this again. My first video was not very good, so I'm learning along with you guys when it comes to this. I'm trying to help you out, but it doesn't always work. Alright, today we're going to do tire truing. There's some videos out on the internet that are good. This is simply my take on it. Some of my stuff's different. I have a different truer than some of the guys, which might help some of you out. Basically, we're going to turn this tire and wheel combo into this, which is a finished, basically race ready wheel and tire combo. This is a CB Designs 15 by 10 standard insert wheel. It's just a really solid wheel for pretty much anything cheap. They're pretty round. I have cleaned this up with some alcohol before I got started and installed the screw, which does go through the center of the wheel. And then the tire we're going to work with today is an NSR Supergrip. This is probably the most common tire for racing, especially proxies or anything like that. It works good on plastic, it works good on wood. It's the tire that comes standard on most of your NSR slot cars. That said, it's also one of the most, however you want to say it, untrue tires out of the box. They're molded quickly, they're cheap, they're $5 for 4 or something like that. And so they require a lot of work and a lot of pampering to get them to where they're fast. So anyway, again, I cleaned this wheel with alcohol. Next step, we're going to inspect this tire. I fold it inside out, just simply, flip it inside out like so. I want to look for any fragments of the injection process that are, below the flange of the tire. A lot of times you can just pick them off. You can clip them off with some flush cuts like this. Just clip off the flange. This one's pretty good. The next step would be to clean it with a paper towel, and I just use a glass cleaner here, and then I just wipe down the tires. This is to get any mold release or dirt or grime off of there before we go and glue the tire, which is going to be the next step. And a lot of people, I think, are afraid to glue tires. They don't want them to be permanent. For me, again, these are $5. The pair of wheel is $9. If you want to have a high grip tire, there's just no way you're going to get around gluing it on. People want to try them on different cars, so on and so forth. You're not even going to get a feel for whether or not this tire is working for you unless you glue it to the wheel. You can use some like clear fingernail polish or something if you wanted to do a semi-permanent glue. However, I'm going to super glue this on. If I want to get this back off, I'll simply rip it off of the rim, soak the rim in acetone, which will eat up the rubber, and then I'll reuse the wheel. So you can see on these tires there's a little bit of a ridge around the one side. I always put that to the inside just because it's typically the least consistent sidewall on the tire. So the inside will be this flat face. And then we'll just go ahead and put it up onto the wheel. Some people tell you to glue the entire wheel. I don't do that. I just glue the sidewall flanges, and the center of the tire can't really move around if those are locked down. And we're not spinning enough RPM on most of these cars to have the tire lift away from the wheel and cause a bunch of instabilities. It's just not very common. So I slip it on there. I kind of make sure it's fully seated, and then we'll move on to the next step. I'm just going to use this Gorilla Glue. I usually use stuff thinner than this, but it's of course the cap is glued on, as is usually the case. This stuff's a little thicker. It'll work for our purposes, but again, if you have thinner stuff, it'll probably work better for you. So what I use to glue these on is actually just a a pocket screwdriver, a small, you could use even a pick probably if you wanted to, or a small, you know, cut down a popsicle stick. I don't know. There's a bunch of things you could use, but this is what I use: a pocket screwdriver. And to do this, I just dip this in. You can tell I've done a lot with this. I'll clean off the excess towards the tip, like so, and then I'll just pull back the sidewall a little, and I'll coat the inside of the tire like this. It's, you know, you can be as clean or as dirty as you want. I'm not doing it clean here. I'm just making sure it's glued on. I just take a piece of foam like this and basically do this, and that ends up, you know, cleaning up the sidewall enough for me. If I was building a show car, I might take my time with this. For a race car, these tires aren't going to last me too long, so I'm just gonna get them glued. Move on to the rear of the tire. Same process, just insert the screwdriver, drag the glue around in there, and then make sure you got the tire re-centered. Okay, so she's glued up front and back. I'm going to let that set up. Don't set the tire down on any face. It'll glue itself to whatever you're working with, so we're just going to set it on the tread, let it sort itself out. While that is gluing up, we're going to talk about the truer. So this is my Scaleauto truer. This is a version 1. I've cut a lot of tires recently. It's not clean. I do clean it periodically, but it's not a big deal for today. You'll see one modification I made is adding this fan. The Supergrips, the Thundersauce slicks, all of those, they're very soft. If you cut too fast, you create a lot of heat. The tire will blister. Chunks of the tire will get stuck in between the truer and the roller media, and then you end up basically ruining the tire. This has allowed me to cut basically twice as fast. Just having cold air blowing over the tire, it blows the chunks of rubber out from between the tire and the roller down into the receptacle here, and that keeps it from sticking to the tread and causing problems. Having the truer on a base like this that is also helping because it's blowing air up out. And this thing does run pretty hot a lot of times because my truer, the Scaleautos, have a speed control built in. Now a lot of them do not, which means you're going to end up needing to, you know, mess with the power supply voltage that you have hooked up to this to make it work. I found this as one of the most convenient features of this truer. Though the things I don't like about it are it can be really loud when you're doing partial voltages, but essentially it's nice. I have this hooked straight up to a 12-volt power supply. I have this fan teed into the back, so it just runs all the time the truer is on. You'll see when I start it up, it is quite loud. I'll talk as loud as I can. Hopefully we can power through it. It does come with 3mm and 332 axles to do whatever size tire you want to do here. You can hook up a vacuum attachment here, which wouldn't be a bad idea to just draw that out all the time if you wanted to make the setup even louder. So these are good. When you're truing tires, you want to true all 4 tires on your car. The fronts are almost never round, and they have a huge effect also on the ability of the car to corner flat and to be smooth. The other thing that's nice with a truer is you can use it to set like the front wheel diameter to set guide depth. You can do the same thing with the rear if you want to lower the vehicle. Sometimes that'll help your center of gravity or change the gear ratio. You can simply turn the tire down. Of course, tires are available in many diameters, so picking one that's close to what you're doing is going to be good anyway. Okay, so this is pretty quick set super glue. This is probably glued on enough that we can at least get started going here with mounting it up. On this, the axle just slides out. We add the bearing lock on there, then we add the tire. This is a 1.5mm, or excuse me, 2.5 millimeter fastener. Oh, didn't quite get it without two hands. There we go. So that goes locked down. Just put the belt on here, and then with these CB design wheels and a lot of wheels, people are they don't like to glue them on because they can't get to the screw. I have found this is not an issue at all. I simply push the tool straight through the tire above the hole. This is a Wera wrench. It's got a nice tapered bit to it, and it's small diameter, so it doesn't. You basically can't tell that you've done it. I've done it hundreds of times on some cars to pull the wheels on and off, and it doesn't disrupt the roundness of the tire, especially once it's glued on. So I have the screw rotated. I'm just looking through the side, and I'm just going to push this thing right through the tire down to the screw, and then I'm going to tighten the screw. Now on mine, I like to basically move the tire close to this spindle. This is the stiffest spindle. And it helps just kind of make sure that the tire's flat. You could do two on here. I've found that if I do two at a time, it's hard to manage whether both of them are staying cool. I don't get as much parallelism out of it. There's just so much pressure then on this rig that it can kind of flex a little bit. These are our stops to set the depth. I've already done that other tire, so I'm hoping that I don't have to move these stops, but essentially you would back these off, true the tire to the diameter you want, lock these down, and then it's very repeatable after that. You just turn this in till it stops, slowly of course, and then the tire is going to be within a quarter or less millimeters of the other one, which I think is close enough for most people. So anyway, I'm going to plug this in. The fan's going to get loud. We're going to start truing this, and I'll show you guys what it's about. Okay, so I'm just going to start off kind of with a mediocre speed here, something about like that. I just kind of go by feel. It's probably hard to see, but this is not very round. So I'm just going to turn this basically until it starts touching. And you're going to hear it when that happens, probably anyway. Okay, so we're now up against the grinding wheel. You can see that dull spot starting to form probably on the tire there. Again, this is actually pretty fast to be cutting a super grip. If you didn't have a fan for airflow, you would probably need to be going slower than this. And this fan is just like from a computer CPU or this one is actually off of an RC car electronic speed control. So I just bonded it to this plastic shield here and wired it in on the back, and it made a tremendous difference. So it's something I'd recommend to you guys. So basically we're going to try to keep the RPMs relatively the same all the way through this, and we're just going to continually cut. We'll hear it bog. Then usually this truer will speed up a little bit, and then, or we could even speed it up if we felt like it was going too slow. And we're just going to sneak up on the final diameter of this tire. Again, moving this to the left is going to run it in. And we're only going, man, it's probably only a tenth of a turn at a time. It's not much. In fact, we're only going to be taking probably about 3/4 of a millimeter, maybe 1 millimeter off the total diameter of this tire to get it round. So it's really not a lot that you're taking off typically. So again, you can probably see that flashing. That's you know, the high and the low spot. I'll stop this real quick so you can see it. You can probably see this area here has all been cut already, but then it tapers off, and we're not even touching this area of the tire yet. So that's what we're basically going to keep going until we have this nice smooth machined finish across the entire tire. It's probably going to take me 15 minutes or so, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and we'll reconvene after we get it smoothed out.